Hello everybody, welcome back to Bootstrap Workbench. Wanted to talk a little bit about how we set up for running digital modes, more specifically FT4 and FT8. So the configuration that I have here at the house is, of course, I have my USB cable between the transceiver and the computer. Before I hooked that up, I installed the ICOM USB driver and verified that communication. There is some configuration that needs to be done in the radio. I'll cover that in just a minute after I talk about applications. So, of course, the main one is WSJTX. That is what you use to do FT4, FT8, MSK, Q65, JT65, a variety of other modes. Whether you're doing regular long format digital or you're doing something like Meteor Scatter. So I'm using that. I also have DX Keeper that I run to have a local copy of my logs. I'm also running Ham Radio Deluxe. Now, Ham Radio Deluxe is what I use to interface WSJTX to the radio. And the reason I do that is that when I'm operating remotely, I can remotely control my screen and control my RF power. So if I want to be at 10 watts, I can set that. If I want to be at 20 watts, I can set that. 30 watts. You see how it works. If you just use WSJTX directly, there's no facility to control power other than adjusting your audio drive, which has its own issues. So that is how I do that. Now, the way that I have that set up is, of course, you have to come in here and select which radio it is, what COM port it's on, your connection speed, your CIV address. That has to match what's in your radio. The other thing that I'm doing that makes a huge difference is I'm running Grid Tracker 2. So in Grid Tracker 2, you can set up automatic logging. So basically, when you've made a QSO in WSJTX, it prompts you for the details. You enter the details. As soon as you click OK on that, Grid Tracker 2 grabs that information and does however you've set with it. So the way I have it set is it uploads it to Club Log, it uploads it to HRD Log, it uploads it to EQSL, it uploads it to Logbook of the World. I don't have it set to upload automatically to QRZ.com. I don't have a subscription there. They do require that you have a subscription to be able to do that upload. Now, if I had that, I could do that. What I do instead is a couple of times a day, if I'm operating heavily, I'll go into QRZ and I'll bring things over from Logbook of the World. They have a facility to do that in your logbook. The other thing that's great about Grid Tracker 2 is it'll show you on a map where the stations are that you're hearing. You can also cycle through various views on the map, and it'll show you what states you have and haven't worked, what countries you have and haven't worked, what zones you have and haven't worked, so on and so forth. So that's pretty awesome too. And so, of course, that's that. I also have the HRD logbook running. I like to have a couple of different copies of my log. Of course, you also have the log files that are built into WSJTX, and I almost never reset those. And if I do, I make a backup of them first. I put them in offsite storage. That way, worst come to worst, Logbook of the World loses all their info or QRZ loses all their info, I can go ahead and just re-upload everything again. I think it's a wise decision. Also, if somebody says they worked me and I'm not sure if they did or not, I can go back to one of the logs, the all.txt, and it has basically every QSO that you've heard or been a part of, and you can go through there and see if you actually made contact with somebody. Sometimes that happens. You're working somebody in WSJTX, you move on to another contact, the person you were working calls you again, they didn't get your final message, you go back and work them. Then when you finish working the person that you were working, it doesn't log properly. And it's because it doesn't prompt. It's not something that you did or didn't do. It's It's not something that the program's doing incorrectly. It's just it gets confused when there's multiple QSOs going on, and that's fine. So give me just a moment here. I will reconfigure, and when I come back, we'll take a look at what I have set up on the radio. All right, here we are. So first thing I do is if I'm going to run digital modes, I make sure that notch is off, noise blinker is off, noise reduction is off. All of those things will interfere with being able to run your digital modes. So then you can go into set, and there's various things you can adjust. The big things are that you go into connectors, and you set your data mod to USB, and you have to set up your CIV information. And let's see here. I think that pretty much covers it. Let's take another look here. So there is another feature here that's pretty neat. They added it with one of the more recent firmwares. There's an FT8 preset. So I can go in here, I can load my changes, and then when I go back to set, let's see here. Now everything is set correctly. Other than the stuff I mentioned at first, your noise blinker, your noise reducer, all of that stuff, you just have to turn that off. That's not controlled by the presets. And then when you're done, you just come back in, you go to your presets, you unload it, and then you load your normal preset. And you're good to go. You're back to normal, except for you have to turn your settings back on. So there you go. That simple. Quick and easy. And then it works pretty well. Now what I usually do, I have the 7300. I've also purchased the 7100 a few years ago. And I typically keep the 7300 set up for SSB use. 7100 is set up for digital use. And then that way I don't have to switch the profiles back and forth. I can. I just usually avoid it. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. Other than that, everybody knows how YouTube works. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.